Nuance, humour and a surprising amount of heart. Here's why Mortal Kombat 11 is the best video game movie never made. Generally, we're not used to fighting games telling good stories. We don't really care why angry martial artist A has beef with smouldering martial artist B, and while Mortal Kombat as a series has traditionally provided plenty of backstory, it hasn't always been woven into the fabric of the game. We knew why Scorpion and Sub-Zero hated each other, we just didn't see it represented on screen. By now, there will be other videos out there explaining why Mortal Kombat 11 is a decent fighting game. It's got a brilliantly detailed tutorial mode for new players, and the game's systems have been streamlined, dialing back the X-ray attacks and replacing them with a one-shot fatal blow move that can alter the course of a fight when used correctly. But we're not here to talk about that. In this video, I'll be looking at exactly why Mortal Kombat 11's story mode is so good, and how NetherRealm Studios have become the fighting game studio when it comes to deep, engaging narrative fighting games. But before we get started, a warning, there are some spoilers ahead. I won't be going into late game plot specifics, and many of the characters and locations have already been revealed in the trailers, but if you don't want to know anything, now's the time to teleport away. And yes, I know I should have done 11 entries, but it just wouldn't look right in the title. So here we go, 7 reasons Mortal Kombat 11 is the best video game movie never made.
Now that's what I call a miracle.
Yeah, Raiden. Thanks.
Much of what's great about MK11's story comes from its time-bending big bad, Kronika. There are loads of good things to say about the game's complicated antagonist. First of all, she's nicely ambiguous. Her plan is to reverse time to prevent Raiden beheading Shinnok, which upsets the balance of the universe. And doing so isn't necessarily a bad thing, because in recent games, Raiden has morphed from benevolent protector of Earthrealm to intransigent, furious Thunder God, responsible for the death of many of the game's key characters. This ambiguity is carried over from the excellent Injustice 2, where opposing factions each had some common ground. And Kronika's power and motivation recall Thanos from Marvel's Infinity War. Her ability to change time also brings the story to life. It means that the tangled events of previous games can be undone, and it helps streamline a complicated story. So in the current version of Mortal Kombat's world, for example, Liu Kang and Kitana are revenants, brought back to life to serve Shinnok. But Kronika's Timequake allows the original versions of the heroes to return, and it feels fantastic to have them back. Not only that, but the circular timeline allows for some brilliant, amusing twists. If an original version of a character gets injured, for instance, that injury appears on their future self. Think of it like Back to the Future, but with more evisceration.
Oh, that's freaky like Friday. They shot our face, Johnny! They shot our face!
My second point relates to the first. The ability to straddle timelines and bring old characters back makes this feel like a Mortal Kombat greatest hits album. Many of the series' favourites return in their classic incarnations, and those that don't are alluded to in a way that MK fans will love. We see Shang Tsung's ruined island, for example, and the caves where Goro was originally kept. And by having these places explored by characters like Jax, you get a real sense of the history behind them, like revisiting fighting game stages from MK2 in virtual reality.
This is Goro's lair.
Thankfully, mine is Goro.
And to reference Marvel movies again, much like Infinity War, Mortal Kombat 11 does a fine job of dealing with a massive ensemble cast. It could have been an impossible mess, but it's compartmentalised in a way that means every character gets their moment in the spotlight. Even the new characters are integrated in a way that makes them feel like they've always been there, and they don't feel superfluous, an impressive feat considering the gigantic roster.
I did not wish to harm you, but now you have forced my hand.
Trying to unpick the Mortal Kombat story is like trying to perform cosmetic dental surgery on a tar carton. It's dangerous, messy, and everyone involved will regret it. It's so famously convoluted that we could spend a whole video just explaining the real history between Sub-Zero and Scorpion, let alone the entire series. Mortal Kombat 11 gets around to some of these narrative challenges by bending time, but it's also really smart about how it tells its story. Crucial bits of information rise to the top without it ever feeling like you're being battered with the exposition hammer during every cutscene. And the elegant facial tech, which we'll talk about in a bit, allows NetherRealm to show what's happening most of the time rather than telling you. Yes, it's complicated in places and you'll get more out of the game if you've played previous entries, but this is absolutely a place that new players can start, assuming there's such a thing as a person watching this video who's never played a Mortal Kombat game before. The story itself is perfect for providing quick catch-ups in every chapter. A lot of the time, the heroes in the campaign mode are as confused as the people playing it, so the game can happily explain what's been happening for the last 20 odd years without it feeling simple or vulgar.
All squads withdraw! Evac, now!
Mortal Kombat has always been a series with its about-to-be-ripped-out tongue placed firmly in cheek. While the media panicked about how vulnerable gamers were being corrupted, Mortal Kombat got even sillier, introducing babalities and friendships.
Out! How the hell do I ever sleep with that guy?
And as the series has grown up, that sense of humour has got more knowing and self-referential, if perhaps not more subtle. You can see this on display in the game's fatalities. In MK11, they're so absurdly brutal that they've lost any sense of shock or revulsion. Somewhere in the bowels of NetherRealm Studios, great minds are thinking up the funniest, most inventive ways to slice a body in half. But the humour in MK11 isn't just slapstick. The time-bending elements of the campaign allowed for some incredible moments with alternate versions of the same character. Chipper Aussie murderer Kano meeting his ripped future self is a treat, but the greatest moments all belong to Johnny Cage, specifically the older, wilier version of the action hero tussling with his arrogant younger self.
An old man just kicked your ass.
Subtlety isn't a word often associated with Mortal Kombat. Fractures, decapitation, pummeling, yes, but not subtlety. Mortal Kombat 11 isn't just about close-ups of bones being shattered. There are some tender, thoughtful touches here that make you stop and force yourself to remember that you're playing a Mortal Kombat game. Little things like the moment that Liu Kang hugs Kitana but can't quite allow himself to fully embrace her tells a story without anything having to be explicit. And elsewhere, there are moments of genuinely touching romance and relatable family drama. Yes, I know how that sounds. This is still Mortal Kombat and there are still moments where faces get devoured by bugs, but there are elements to MK11 that will make you wish this was an ongoing TV series rather than a fighting game that only comes around every 4 years.
You would have me, even with my hardened heart.
I know your heart. It can change.
My next point follows on directly from this, and it's the reason that moments in my previous entry are so effective. The facial animations in Mortal Kombat 11 are incredible. This continues the amazing work in Injustice 2, where the faces seem relatable and real without ever having that creepy, uncanny valley element that makes similar games feel weirdly uncomfortable.
It's all right. I won't harm you.
I can guarantee that you'll never see better furrowed brows than the ones on display in MK11. And it absolutely brings the game to life. The game doesn't need to tell you what Jax's emotional state is, because you can see it, and the differences between a focused character like Liu Kang and a more flippant one like Kung Lao have never been more pronounced. I realised it sounds bizarre to be talking about nuanced performances in a game that talks openly about cyber ninjas and wizards, and if this was a real movie it would be excruciatingly silly, but in this context the incredible digital performances let you really engage with characters who seem real despite the fantastical setting. It's a pure comic book thrill.
Easy enough. What's next?
Everything.
And finally, very quickly, we've got choice. No, this isn't a BioWare game. You won't get to choose who you romance or discuss how you feel before you punch off someone's head.
Fatality.
But like Injustice 2, you do get to make decisions about which character fights whom. These options pop up on screen during some moments of dialogue, and it's a cool touch that makes the story feel like it's your own. Plus, it lets you try new characters if you feel like it, or stick with those you know and love if you'd rather push through the campaign to see the resolution. It also provides a nice element of replayability. You can see who did each section in the Conquest mode menu, allowing you to jump back in as you explore the alternatives for a different perspective. This, coupled with the fact that the campaign will take you a solid day of bone-shattering violence to complete, means that Mortal Kombat's story isn't just enjoyable, it's rather lengthy too. There are loads of other cool elements outside the story that MK fans will love. The Crypt mode is a cool throwback to Deadly Alliance, and the third-person elements even recall the Conquest mode from Deception. On top of this, the game has some of Injustice 2's addictive gear grinding. It's not implemented with quite the same degree of variety, but you can unlock loads of cosmetic tweaks and a massive selection of new skins for each character, something that will keep you busy long after the story has finished. And that's your lot. Please pummel that like button if you're into MK's wonderfully convoluted story, and Sub-Zero subscribe to the channel for more chill videos. And if you are already subbed, go ahead and clang that notification bell so that you know when our next video hits. And that is as many MK references as one person can fit into an outro. Goodbye.
Deadly uppercut, take 2.
Action! Cut!
Have you been to Hollywood?